There has been so much happening in the NBA lately that if you blink, you might just miss it. From trade rumors to big games, we've seen a historic offseason followed up by one of the craziest regular seasons of all time. And honestly, I'm just speaking from a narrative standpoint. We've seen young players take huge leaps and truly start to ascend into superstar status, and we've seen others making names for themselves in their new home. Earlier this season, I made a video on Trae Young, and that video was titled How Trae Young Could Ruin the Future of the Atlanta Hawks. Now, if you just read the title of the video, you would have missed my point entirely on what the whole video was about. It wasn't exactly about Trae Young taking the Hawks down a slippery slope. It was about Trae Young actually being too good and the Atlanta Hawks feeling pressure to win early on with their young superstar. In the NBA, we've seen this time and time again. It's nothing new, and the rate that it happens at is actually absurd. Now, I'm not saying you have to pull a Sam Hinkie and do the entire process that the Philadelphia 76ers did and be really bad for what feels like an abnormal amount of years, but I'm saying that there is a process to becoming a winner. If you want to become a team like Golden State and truly compete at the highest level, not just for a few years, but for a very long time, you can't skip any steps. You see, what building organically does, and I'm not saying it has to be completely organic, because you do need good free agent signings, you need roster moves, you need players believing in the culture. You don't want to be at the very bottom for a really long time. That is not fun, and it's not fun for a star player at all. That's another way to get your star player to leave. It's a really tough task in the NBA to build a winner, I understand that. But again, if you build organically with the proper moves, what you do is you have young players on rookie contracts. These rookie contracts are invaluable. And these young players on these contracts, they do not have to be superstar players. That is a big misconception. I think a lot of people think that in order to hit on a draft pick, you have to hit big like a Kawhi Leonard, a Giannis, or a Pascal Siakam. Remember, Kawhi and Siakam did not come into the league as superstars, and neither did Giannis. Developing players goes a long way in the NBA. But again, hitting on draft picks doesn't mean these players have to be superstars. Just not completely blowing the pick is incredibly helpful, because if you could get second-round picks that are valuable contributors to your team, you're able to keep your salary cap lower, and the same goes for first-round picks. This is why I put so much emphasis on the process. Not only do you have these players on flexible contracts, but it gives you flexibility for the long term. You're not bought into players in case they end up not panning out for your team. We see it a lot in the NBA. A guy will have a fantastic year with one team, he'll go to another team, and all of a sudden it's like, where did that year that he just had go? Earlier this year, I also made a video on 5 NBA blockbuster trades that were destined to happen. I got a lot of hate for the video, but one of the trades I predicted was Andre Drummond to the Atlanta Hawks. This video, I'm going to be dropping a huge update on this trade actually happening and going over the possibilities and what this means for the Atlanta Hawks' future. But before we get into that, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You will not want to miss another Getlikecoop video. And that's facts. I'm trying to get to 200,000 subscribers so I can go full time and bring you guys daily content. So be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. A lot of people have been telling me they like my trade update videos, and they also like my New Orleans Pelicans videos along with my Zion videos. I thought people liking my Pelicans videos was a little shocking. I have a lot of fun making those, but knowing that you guys like those also is incredibly fun. The Pelicans are a fun team with a lot of potential, as are the Atlanta Hawks. But let me know down in the comments below what your favorite video for me is and what videos you would like to see on my channel. But also be sure to follow my IG, guys, handle Getlikecoop. You will not want to miss another post. Earlier this season, this report came out from Shams. Frustration has been mounting within the Hawks organization at times, and league sources say it resulted in an emotional locker room scene involving star point guard Trae Young. After a 130-118 home loss to the Brooklyn Nets on Wednesday, one high-ranking team official was seen telling Young that the team would be getting him some help on the roster soon, according to multiple sources. When I checked the records, the Hawks have the worst one in the entire NBA. The roster at this stage is not very good, loaded with young potential and talented players. Trae Young needs help. But The Hawks also have to exercise a patience, in my opinion. Let the young players around Trae develop and don't get stuck in the mediocrity. But at the same time, if you could get a big-time player like Andre Drummond, I am for it. Trae Young does deserve help, and Andre Drummond can be a long-term asset for the Atlanta Hawks. Woj has reported Detroit and Atlanta have been engaged in talks on a trade centered on Andre Drummond, league sources tell ESPN. No deal imminent, but Detroit is talking to the Hawks and several other teams on Drummond. Woj says Drummond has a $28 million player option for next season that he is unlikely to exercise, forcing the Pistons to consider possibly losing him in free agency. Among teams, there's an increasing belief that Drummond will be moved before the February 6th trade deadline. That's not even the wildest part. I'll get to that in just a second, but I'm not surprised that Drummond is somebody that's on the trade block, because before the season started, I remember seeing an article that Drummond would be excited to test the free agency market. I think his time in Detroit has kind of run its course. Now for the Atlanta Hawks, they would have to make sure that the trade is fair for them. They have to keep in mind that Drummond is on a one-year deal, that it is going to expire after this year. Now, I'm sure the Hawks know that, and they're negotiating under the understanding that Drummond will sign an extension once he gets traded to the Hawks, if the Hawks trade does actually happen. I think it's interesting, though, because you see teams willing to gamble on these players that have contracts that are expiring. Remember when Paul George was traded to Oklahoma City? Everybody thought Paul George would initially leave. He did not. Everybody thought Paul George was going to go flat out to the Lakers, and everybody was questioning, why would the Lakers trade for Paul George if he's just going to go there in free agency? Well, you see, things happen, and the team that trades for that player has the leg up. For example, again, the Paul George situation, which worked out until, of course, Paul George ended up demanding out. But the point is, he ended up signing that extension. It's interesting because you see the Lakers not make the same mistake, and they go out and they get their guy in Anthony Davis. Now, Anthony Davis so far has been non-committal, but I would assume he's on pace to re-sign with the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, of course, there are situations like Kawhi Leonard where the player may leave afterwards, but you can even say that situation worked out because the Toronto Raptors won a championship and they knew the risk of trading for Kawhi, who was non-committal. So of course that situation worked out for them. I honestly think that Andre Drummond is the perfect type of player for the Atlanta Hawks. When you look at how the Atlanta Hawks play basketball, they're a team that could use a big with the prowess of Andre Drummond. I like what he brings to the game, not only on the offensive side of the basketball. I know a lot of people may not think he's some elite offensive player, but he shows a ton of promise on that side, at least in my opinion. And he's an absolute monster on the offensive boards. That alone would make him a good offensive addition, in my opinion. You win the boards, you have a good chance to win the game. A lot of people sleep on this aspect of basketball, but when the Golden State Warriors were also so good, they were out rebounding teams, and I feel like some fans may sweep that under the rug. The fact of the matter is the Atlanta Hawks are the third worst rebounding team in the entire NBA. For reference, that's not very good. They have to get better in that aspect. No better way to do that than adding the best rebounder in the NBA. Drummond is averaging 17.6 points, 15.8 rebounds, 2.7 assists, and he's giving you 2 blocks a game, but also 2 steals. He's going to give you a powerful punch on defense, but also the offensive end. I can't stress that enough because a lot of people that watch Drummond's game, again, they don't see some elite offensive player, but his potential has not been unlocked truly on the offensive side of the basketball. He's never played with a point guard that has the passing ability of Trae Young, who, in my opinion, I don't even think it's opinion at this point, is one of the best passers in the entire NBA. Trae Young is a floor general, and he's a polarizing pick and roll player. You have to respect Trae Young in the pick and roll because he can hit from anywhere on the floor. And Drummond also is a valuable role man that teams have to pay attention to try and stop. The potential of this pairing is actually absurd. Now, the news I was talking about earlier is that the NBA Central on Twitter says that Andre Drummond missed practice today due to a stomach ailment. Now, generally when we see stuff like this and we see trade rumors brewing, that player is normally about to get traded. I know earlier they said that nothing is imminent, but I would just take that with a grain of salt. I want to know what team you guys would most like to see Andre Drummond on, and do you think this would be a good move for the long-term future of the Atlanta Hawks? I would love to see this trade, but only if the deal is fair for Atlanta. Trae Young is a very good player, and he should get the help that he deserves. The NBA draft is looking good. I wouldn't sleep on that. Also, it appears the Boston Celtics, Dallas Mavericks, and Toronto Raptors have all shown interest in Andre Drummond. Imagine Luka and Drummond. Be sure to click the video on the screen right now, guys. It's me going over 5 players who are surprising with all-star type years. Be sure to subscribe. Notice on. I'm Getlikecoop and I'm out.